show. I'm your host today, Adrian Evans. I'm really thrilled today to invite Keith Douglas onto the show. Keith, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Adrian. Hope you're well.
Yeah, all well. And yourself? All good?
All good. Cannot complain. It's not raining outside, so that always brings a smile to my day.
Wonderful. Well, you've got an amazing backdrop there on looking over the Thames there. So no, really excited for today. So obviously our show is about human-centric leaders who are in the payment show, in the payments industry, who combine fulfilling the potential of their people, yet fulfilling the growth and the ambition of obviously the companies they work for. And nobody I know better who's accomplished at this than Keith. So Keith is now the CEO of Vocalink Limited, a MasterCard company responsible for vital payments infrastructure within the UK. Now, Keith is a motivated leader and empowers his people, and in many ways, he gets out of their way so they can do their best work. He's created high-performing teams, and I've been privileged enough to be involved with a number of those teams, but an enjoyable people-centric culture. We share very similar values on many fronts, one of the primary ones being about how you win and not just winning. He's a stellar relationship builder and thoroughly decent human being. So we're connected by our mutual friend, and we might as well get this out of the way straight away. Anand Patel, we'll be sulking if we don't mention him. So we'll say his name twice at least. He wants the first copy of this. And a declaration, Keith is a long-standing client and close friend of mine. So Keith, welcome.
Well, thank you very much, Adrian. They were very, very kind words, and hopefully I can live up to some of that reputation you set for me in the context of some of the perspective I bring. But thank you also for mentioning Anand, who, as you said, a long-standing friend of both of us. And great that he has been able to connect us a number of years ago.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What if we could just dive in, and I wonder if you could just share with us some of the key choices you've made in your payments career today.
Of course, yeah. I mean, that's a very broad question,
Sure.
and a number of different ways you can answer it. But as I was kind of thinking about that question, because you did pose it to me last week, I guess I'll come at it from the point of view of me and what drives and motivates me, rather than necessarily thinking about organizations or geographies or anything like that. I think first and foremost, and something that perhaps we could touch upon in some other questions, a lot of my choices have been driven by a singular goal I've had for quite some time, and that is to be the very best version of myself in the workplace. And when it comes to the roles I've had, particularly in the last 20 odd years in payments, I've been fortunate enough between companies and within companies to be able to be that best version of myself. And therefore those opportunities as they've arisen, or those opportunities as I've tried to create, have enabled me to do that. And to be the very best version of myself, I'm really talking about playing to my strengths, or my edge, as I like to refer to it. And I'm also talking a little bit about how I can be the authentic individual that I am, or the authentic leader that I can. So trying to find myself or put myself into positions or when it comes to kind of career to bring out or to play to those two areas. The other thing that's very important to me is leading. I do enjoy it, and I have had a number of roles that you kind of expressed in your intro. As I think about leading, I think about it as being a very, very important and indeed privilege to be able to lead teams or lead people. And why it's important is not only that privilege, but as you lead, you get to choose the narrative that defines you as a leader. And therefore, my career choice as Payments career choice has been driven by the opportunities to lead and to play to my style of leadership, which is really, fundamentally about having vision and deep-rooted purpose. And by that, I mean in the context to me of that statement is about being clear about my values, my principles, and my behaviors, and finding myself in an environment where I can play to those values, those principles, those behaviors. I think talking about leading and obviously leading or leading a team, I have to find myself in a situation where I'm grounded by a team. If I'm in a role that doesn't give me that opportunity, then I'm not going to be as effective. So that being in a situation or an environment where I'm in a team is critical. And that's critical because you can celebrate success as well as learn from failure of the team. You can help shape and build an operating culture with those around you, and you can help create an impact either yourself or with that team. And I think you've heard me express before my proverb, African proverb with the mosquito, and that being, if you think you're too small to be effective, you've never been to bed with a mosquito. But the importance of that is when you think about individually or you think about it as a team, every team can have an impact. And that's why it's so important in my career choices have been defined by being parts of teams that can have an impact. And I think the kind of last area I would kind of focus on in terms of career choices, and this is important to me, is together is always better. A kind of a phrase around helping and striving to be an environment where we're collectively getting better individually and as a team. And I've had the opportunity to learn from talented people, leaders and others, and finding yourself in a situation working with those kind of that caliber, then you learn something and you want to give that back. And so I've kind of navigated my career choices, then putting myself in a situation where I can help, where I can support, where I can encourage and drive diversity of thinking in the team have been foundation to how I've thought about my career.
Right. Okay. Can we just go a little bit deeper on that? Together is always better. I know you're a committed servant leader. Where does that come from, and how does that manifest itself in terms of the diversity of teams that you surround yourself with or recruit?
Yeah, I it's on one hand relatively easy to answer, but it's I don't know. I found myself in a situation, as I said, I've thoroughly enjoyed working as part of teams. I've been in roles where I've been part of a small team or an individual contributor, and I have found it less fulfilling. In part because I'm not interacting or learning from others in a team environment that you would get in a team environment, or get more easily or more readily in a team environment. I think you use servant leader. I think for me, there's a gentleman called Simon Sinek, who I often borrow from some of his quotes or his mantra, and he talks about leadership is not about being in charge; it's about taking care of those in your charge, and I think that's kind of core to me. I enjoy working with people. I enjoy helping people. I understand. I enjoy people seeing other people succeed and achieve. I've been fortunate enough to work in many great teams and many great organizations where I've been able to play that role and to support others in that role. That's what kind of underpins or motivates an aspect of how I lead or how I engage with others. And really kind of my job as I see it is to facilitate the success of others. Knowing that collectively we all succeed, but most importantly, the success of others is about helping those around me fulfill, back to your first question, help them navigate their career and fulfill kind of the outcomes that they want through the experiences that they have. There's you heard me talk earlier about being the best version of yourself. And really, as a servant leader, I'm trying to help people to be best versions of themselves. There's a very famous Irish playwright and Oliver or Oscar Wilde, I should say. I think we all know or have heard of him. and he talks about being yourself because everyone else is already taken. And I think that's a great reminder of the fact that we have to be ourselves, and as a servant leader or together is always better in that team environment.
Yep.
I got to play a role to help everyone be the best version of themselves.
Love that one, Keith. Gonna use that one. Brilliant, brilliant. So you mentioned about sort of creating the conditions for others so that they can flourish and realize their potential. How do you go about giving others the confidence? Because I've observed this, you're giving others the confidence to stretch outside their comfort zone because you can see further than they can.
Yeah.
How do you give people that confidence?
Well, I think these are all kind of challenging questions to answer because it's and part of it is part of it is experience, but part of it is just kind of how I operate, and that's kind of rooted by a set of kind of guiding principles, and also how I like to lead, which is not necessarily the best way, but it's how I like to lead, and therefore, if people are clear about my values or principles and they're clear about how I like to lead, then they've got the opportunity to take advantage of that or flex within it. Recognizing we don't all have the same values or we don't all lead in the same way. So that's kind of hugely important as I think about instilling the confidence in a team to kind of drive to the right outcomes or drive to the right vision, and support and enable them to be the very best versions of themselves. I think part of what you can do as a leader, as I said, is create that environment that enables them to think and feel comfort in that way. And again, back to without getting into a long list of what those kind of expectations or values or principles are, things like making sure we own our mistakes, so therefore being clear and comfortable what those mistakes are and learning from them. I use a Walt Whitman expression about being curious, not judgmental, and that's hugely important. Creating an environment where you can ask questions, you can get perspective, you can learn from others, you can reflect on what others said, rather than, and therefore encouraging the debate and the discussion, is something that I try to instill in the environment in which I work. Be decisive, but recognize when you have to make decisions and support the individuals to make those decisions, or frankly, where you or me have to make that decision, get to the point where you do based on the wisdom and guidance of those in your team. So I think those things, I hope, have helped my teams, the teams I've been part of, giving them confidence to drive to outcomes, which has enabled me to support in the right way and allow that team or those individuals to continue to be the very best versions of themselves to achieve that potential.
Wonderful, wonderful. Just building on that theme, you said that everybody in your team, whether you're starting at the beginning of a year or starting with a new team, everybody gets an A, and you believe it's your responsibility to help them achieve an A star. That's, I must acknowledge, as an exec coach, and that's quite rare from leaders. Where does that mindset come from?
I think giving everyone an A is my way of kind of telling the team, to face into the challenge, to face into the opportunity, to help them understand that, as a manager or as a leader, their own team, or, their job is to think things through, to take thoughtful actions, to be brave, to consider others as they are being brave, and clearly to empower themselves and those around them. So if you think about that as what I'm trying to help encourage, then by giving them an A, I'm telling them, you get this done. I'm there to help you, navigate around the edges. I'm there to help you get it across the finishing line. I'm there to help you remove obstacles or barriers. So I'm just trying to instill a sense of empowerment and confidence in the team, and therefore help them understand the role that I can play and where I can play that role,
Okay.
to help them to deliver, or as you said, to get that A star, to go that extra mile, or to deliver the outcome in a better or slightly different way than they imagined or believed they should.
Nice. Okay. Thank you. So changing tacks a bit, you recently shared, and I'm going to quote you here, having sponsors is a key part of a successful career.
Yeah.
Whether in the same company or across different organizations, they're a sounding board, an advisor, provide a second opinion, and help you navigate the opportunities that lie ahead, and can advise. I wonder if you could share with the audience there about how to gain sponsorship and advocacy.
Yeah, I maybe I'll start with the very obvious part A to that answer, and that is you got to ask.
Yeah. Okay.
These things don't happen without you pushing, you asking, you seeking. I'm a firm believer, as I'm sure most of your listeners are, that in order, the person who's got to take responsibility for driving your career is yourself. Therefore, you've got to utilize the opportunities, take advantage of the environment around you. And therefore, by asking for help or support, whether that's a sponsor or a mentor or an advocate, that's what you're doing. You're standing up for yourself. You are you're trying to organize either your company or somebody in your company, or indeed your group, to help you. And I say kind of stand up for yourself, because at the end of the day, you're going to drive your career. You need the help of others. I've been fortunate enough to be in the payments arena for 25 years now, and slightly longer in terms of financial services. And I've seen the benefits of sponsorship and advocacy from others to me, or from me to others. And I've seen how helpful, how important, how impactful that can be, either in terms of advancing your career, or actually a support network to help you get better at what you do, or back to what I said earlier, to be the best version of yourselves. I think a sponsor or an advocate is somebody who's one step back, who has kind of a slightly broader view, may not necessarily be supporting you in the capacity of a mentor, but is there, understands you, has a good feeling for you, and is there to represent you in the right way within your environment, within your organization. So for them to do that, they need to understand you. Understand what are your principles. What are your edges, or what are your strengths? How do you like to lead? How do you like to operate? So that they can share those perspectives, or those insights with those that they know, or that you would find helpful as they advocate for you through your kind of career, progression. So asking is hugely important, and within reason, anybody who asks me, I will always help. I will always support. I may not be able to do it immediately, or maybe over time, or there may be some minimal constraints. But anybody who asks, they will always get my help, my support. Just like when I've asked, I've always got the help and support of others to advocate or to sponsor me within a broader organization. But I'm putting the responsibility firmly on my shoulders, and I would tell your audience the same. You've got to ask, and if you do, you will find the vast majority of people will support. But then, as you think about how you want them to sponsor or advocate for you, you've got to be clear with them about those things, what you're good at, what you enjoy, what drives you, your guiding principles. And if if you are a leader, or have the opportunities to lead teams, then what makes you the leader that you are. How do you like to lead? And I think that knowledge is powerful in the hands of somebody else who's there to help you.
Wonderful, wonderful. This is so close to my heart because asking appropriately, asking well, but knowing yourself first is so important.
Yeah.
And just to extend that a little bit, do you see sponsorship therefore as a two-way street between the sponsor and the sponsee, making sure that this is ultimately 1+1 ultimately is equaling probably more than 3?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think the sponsor or the advocate has to have, or sorry, they are more impactful or they're more helpful if they have a vested interest in you and your success.
Yep.
And for them to have that kind of vested interest, then there needs to be a connection. But also, more importantly, they need to have a good understanding of who you are. Some of the sponsors and advocates that I have were ex-line managers of mine or who I've worked with before. So, they have a good sense of who I am. And likewise, I think where I've sponsored or advocated for others, it's either because I've known them more broadly in my circle, or I've worked with them in some capacity in the past, or still do work with them in some capacity, as the case may be. And I think that makes it very much a two-way street. For me, it's something that you can bring structure and cadence around it in the context of how you engage and how you utilize that sponsorship or advocacy. But you're building on it. It's your network, it's the interactions you have, and sometimes you may need to call upon it sooner than you would think, or sometimes it's just good to have because they will help and support you as they see opportunity or as you see opportunity.
Wonderful. There's so many good messages in there. Seriously, there's so many good messages in there. So in terms of people who've been most influential in your career, enabling you to become the authentic leader you are today, don't have to name names, but just a flavor of whom you've learned from and who's been most influential.
Yeah, I've thought about this for many years, and it's evolved over time. So it's a great question, and it kind of it brings kind of some of the themes of some of your questions together. That you just asked me. I think my kind of style of leadership, or how I like to lead, is very much defined by that expression: "Together is always better."
Yeah.
That I've tried to kind of at least unpack in a slightly different way for your audience earlier. But as I think about people who have been most influential for me in terms of my style of leadership or how I lead, I go back to either managers that I've worked with in the past, or businesses I've been in where they have been a broader leader in that business. And I think about kind of those experiences and those big inflection points, which, with the benefit of hindsight, I'm not a terribly young individual, so I've got a few years. So with the benefit of that hindsight, you can kind of, those inflection points have helped me think or helped me do something quite different in my career, or behave differently, or seek to understand more as a result of my interaction with those individuals. So there's 5 or 6 people who've been very influential. As I said, I won't name names, but I'll tell you why they've been influential, and clearly why I think they have a key part or a key or I owe them my thanks in terms of how I pursued my my career as an authentic leader. I think I am, or I would like to be. So one is again, without naming names, it goes back to the mid-90s, and it was my boss in a different organization that I am in now, and what they told me was to stand for something, to nail your flag to a particular mast. Not, I don't mean in any kind of irrational or kind of emotive way, but what this individual did is help me understand the importance of, when you're in a team, part of a team, that team to be known as an exacting, demanding, impatient, and inspiring team.
Okay.
And she taught me not to settle for less.
Okay.
Which helps explain some of how I operate in terms of trying to have at least a bold vision.
Yeah.
Where the team can input and head and direct. This a second kind of inflection point, and again around back to being the type of leader that I am, is was again another individual I worked with who taught me that it's very important to spend more time focusing on what you want to be and spend less time focusing how you feel limited by what you are. And that really is just a simple way of saying, think future, ground your future in the way that you want it to be, and then work out how to get there, rather than hindering yourself with lots of questions of self-doubt or indeed some of the things that are less important. And let's just say my experience with that individual helped me determine that I needed to move to a different organization, which is what I did, and certainly that's helped me thereafter. A kind of another leader certainly taught me to think about mindset, and that really was around don't complain, contribute. So I can find, she was able to help me focus that while it's important to understand the reality of the situation, you as a leader or you as an individual have to help either your team or your boss or whoever it may be find a path to success, or to a better outcome, and that's the importance of contributing, not spending time wallowing in self-pity or why are we here, where we're here, let's find a path to where we want to go to. I then worked with this is a lady who was a coach of mine, an executive coach, much like your business, Adrian, and she's the one who helped me understand that my job while I was on this planet is to be the very best version of myself, and to play to my strengths and to find opportunity to do that, but also while doing that, I'll learn. I learn is something that I have continued to do and get from many of the people that I worked with. But she also said to me, which is sometimes a question I pose to others that I work with, is she quoted a Scottish poet, but and that what is it you want to do with this weird and precious life of yours, and that's something that's stuck close to heart. Thinking about what it is and how I can make impact, and certainly as a leader, I try and encourage others to do the same. Another important inflection point for me, again, driving the type of leader I am, and how I try and help others, was again another individual I work for who she said to me, never forget helped you out while others were making excuses. And that was her simple way of saying, you got to help, you got to strive to help others, and therefore others will strive to help you. And, as a leader, that's something I always think about, helping others, because I know many have helped me.
Sure.
And then I kind of, the last is a member of my family, my father, in fact, who has been, fairly, very, very influential in helping me become the leader that I am. And he told me about you should always see the opportunity in everything, and then embrace the challenge, not the other way around. And he in his own way was very, very, very principled around what you bring to the table, and the importance of your experiences, your background, your history, your heritage, whatever you choose to say it. And there's a very famous, well, he's not that famous, but he was in his day, footballer who played for Arsenal, a guy called David Rocastle, who unfortunately passed away many years ago. But he kind of summed it up in a way that I think has kind of stood for me, and that is, again, it's back to being an authentic leader, and the people who have helped me, even in his own little way. David Rocastle did when he said something that you should always remember who you are, where you're from, and what you stand for. And I did. I remember who I am, where I'm from, and certainly those people that I just talked about have been very helpful to me to understand what it is I stand for.
Yeah, I was always getting a little disappointed there, Keith, because I thought Arsenal had to get a mention somewhere.
We do. We always have to get Arsenal into the conversation. And for those of you who still can't draw the dots, I'm a fervent Arsenal supporter, season ticket holder, and I have half a smile on my face given this year's performance, albeit slightly disappointed that we haven't got over the line.
Well, it was a hell of a 200 plus days, wasn't it, to be top of the league?
Indeed.
I love that saying there from David, because it honors your where you're from, honors your heritage and your history, but also it sort of takes it to the individual level about how you live in your life and how you live in your values today and how will you show up. So wonderful. So this is by observation. So sorry, this is not meant to be flattery at all, but this is almost a direct quote from somebody who knows you well. Is your approach has been described as having the ability to navigate a complex business, gain consensus, lead with resilience, and take in setbacks gracefully, yet move on from any loss, focusing on the next priority without sort of holding on to that or any malice towards anything that's happened like that. What mindset has enabled that to happen?
God, that's a multi-layered question, Adrian.
It's from a multi-layered person who
I don't know who gave you that perspective, but quite flattered nonetheless by him or her. Listen. I go back to. I'll try and unpick it a little bit, but
sure.
I go back to the African proverb: if you think you're too small to be effective, you've never been to bed with a mosquito. And I think that's hugely important in terms of my mindset, and that is, whether it's a team or an individual, you have real impact. How you choose to demonstrate that impact is down to you or the team that you're part of. So that's just kind of an overarching frame of mind. I think when something challenging happens, or indeed a big opportunity that you're trying to pursue, again, individually or collectively as part of a team, let's take the challenge aspect of it. When something difficult happens, then you've got really three choices when that happens. I mean, I'm sure there's more, but at least I think there's three. You can let it define you, whatever that is. You can let it destroy you, whatever that is, or you can let it strengthen you. And that's the approach I try and take is, what can I learn? What can I do? How do I get better? How do I help others get better? How as a team do we navigate? So always focus on that last point. How do you let it strengthen you? And that's not easy. I'm
Yeah,
not.
yeah, yeah.
I'm saying that in the context of, sometimes situations can be very, 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 very challenging. It's difficult to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But again, this is what's really important about being part of a team, and therefore leveraging those around you to help you, drive to the outcome that you all agree is the best outcome. How you get consensus, I think, is the way you described it in your question. And there are kind of a couple of components to that I try to ensure that I have in a team.
Okay.
And sometimes it takes time, and teams change. And I'm talking really about some of the leadership teams that I've been part of. And firstly, your team needs to have both interaction, and that's what centers you. That's what grounds you. That's what means that any obstacle or any challenge you face, having that bold vision, having that direction, having those that operating culture, will help you navigate a challenge, help you drive to consensus, help you get your stakeholders um, in the same place, help you with that kind of that sense of resilience, that sense of fortitude that you have as a team. But of course, that having that kind of that vision, that operating culture is one thing. You need to have trust, implicit and explicit trust across that team, knowing that you have each other's back, knowing that you won't always get it right, knowing that you're taking some risk, but you do so knowing that as a group, as a team, as a set of individuals, you've thought this through as best you can, and therefore you're making a decision or charting a path that you feel is right. And having trust and confidence. It won't always go right, but having trust and confidence. And I think if you have that trust and confidence, then that goes a long way to helping drive to the outcome, even if you have a few hiccups thereafter. Of course, being part of a leadership team is one thing. You need to empower not only that team, but others around that team, and making sure that the empowerment is there, and that people feel comfortable that they have the tools, the backing, the support that they need to drive into that tough situation. And I think if I try and focus on those things: having vision, having a strong operating culture, which includes trust, and that sense of trust in the team, and making sure that your team are empowered, that they have a voice, you listen to that voice, and that they have the tools to do what it is you need them to do in order to navigate. And I think it goes back to that quote around soft front, hard back, and that is be there to kind of emotionally and support your team, but also, and whether you're operating front of house or back of house there with them, but also making sure that you have their back. And when you make a decision as a team, or you're trying to drive consensus, once you make that decision, you've made that decision. There's no going back.
We're going to go. Yeah.
No going, well, I didn't agree to that. It's collective responsibility. So they're the things that I try and, well, not to answer your question, but they're the things that are kind of percolating in my mind as I try and drive to consensus, or try and help a team overcome, or indeed myself overcome challenge, or to remain resilient in the face in the face of many obstacles and many challenges. Did I answer your question there, or like did I go off piste a bit?
No, 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 definitely. And sorry, it wasn't the easiest question. The person who delivered it probably delivered it far better. So thanks for picking it apart. I need to have another look at that one. But thank you for picking that one apart. No, the essence there was brilliant. So a much simpler question, which would be the sort of 21-year-old question, which is, what do you wish you knew earlier on in your career? What advice would you be giving to your sort of 21-year-old self?
God, it's so long since I was 21, Adrian. I'm struggling to think back that far.
I think we've got similar duration of that time, so I can relate.
Well, somebody once said to me, which kind of holds true for me as I think back into the earlier part of my career. Particularly, and I had the ability to lead small teams at a relatively in my 20s. So, and I guess this kind of point of reflection plays to that, and that is, I would spend more time listening out for what was not being said.
Okay.
So,
wow, okay.
Ensuring that my antenna was up, and listening out for what not's being said, I think is really around ensuring that whether you're leading that team or part of that team, your voice is heard, or you hear people's voices. And there comes a point where you've got to do something, you've got to make a decision, you've got to move on. But the quality of the outcome is in my view a direct proportion to the amount of questioning, challenge, and perspective that you get, or that you can contribute to a discussion. And as you get to know a team, or as you get to know individuals, then if I think about now versus 15, 20, 25 years ago, then recognizing when people aren't saying something is or not saying what you think they might say is something I think about a little bit, and maybe I would have done more of that in my 20s than I do now. So really about asking questions, listening to others, seeking perspective, play the devil's advocate, encourage people to say things by saying things that they wouldn't normally expect you to say. So you're kind of trying to provoke and thought. So I guess, I've kind of benefited hugely from that in the last 10, 15 years of my career. And I wish, with the benefit of hindsight, I wish I did a little bit more of that in the earlier part of my career.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Keith. Thank you so much. There's so much in here. This is sort of where I normally sort of do a summary, and but I'm sat in front of 4 pages of notes here, so I'm going to try and bring out the most salient points, if I may. I think first of all, right at the top, really, of our conversation, you said about the choices that you've made in your career have been driven by being the very best version of yourself, which is allowing you to play to your strengths, to seek opportunities. And you're very aware, that's broader self-awareness. Actually, you actually enjoy leading, and you know why you enjoy leading. It allows you to make an impact and actually choose the narrative. Together is always better. I think you've benefited from being part of large teams and smaller teams, but actually as well, the caliber of the people around you directly impacts your learning and makes you a better leader. There's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy, as well as a self-motion on that one. Then also the giving confidence to others so they can stretch, means we can own our mistakes. And actually, I love and I've heard you talk about this before, about leading with curiosity, not judgment. That really does create a psychologically safe space, where mistakes are acknowledged, but we find a way together of facing into that. Starting with an A, then an A starter. I love this one about sort of facing into the challenge, but also seeing the opportunity and recognizing, actually, let's be brave about the way we face into that, and let's try and learn from that. The sponsorship piece and the advocacy here, everybody really should grab hold of this piece, because you've clearly benefited from and others have benefited from your sponsorship. And I love the way you just sort of said, first of all, you need to ask. You need to ask in a considered way, because you need to start with yourself, to understand what you bring, what your edge is, and what your skills are, what your ambitions are. And it's a two-way street. And by the way, that's a good thing, because it's playing to self-interest of both parties, so we can grow something bigger. So if anybody's going to take anything from this interview, they really should focus in on that. Most influential people, but I think for me, what I love about that is you described as inflection points. There were 6 or so there. The fact that you learned at the early part of your career, but you continue to do so throughout your career, learning from multiple leaders along the way. But I think that's really brought out that sort of longevity of your learning journey. Sorry for my sort of slightly stumbling question there at 7, but I think it was really about gracefully dealing with setbacks. And I think I love you. Is it going to define you? Is it going to destroy you, or actually is it going to make you stronger? And you choose the latter. I think that gives a learning opportunity directly as a result of doing that, and that grace to stay under pressure at various moments and just remember the context, but also the trust within a team. If we do decide to go over here, we're going to go together. We're now going to go together, and having somebody's back, really, your hand on their back rather than in their face, is I think one of the most important leadership traits. And remember, just because we face some adversity, we're not suddenly going to get dispersed. And then fascinating, really, the last part there about listening what's not being said, because ensuring that actually there could be a quieter voice that needs a platform to have a conversation, or actually just reading the body language more. But Steve, it's a sort of masterclass in authentic leadership. So I hope I haven't missed anything out there. Is there anything else you'd like to finish on?
No, I think listen, you managed to make sense of question 7 there, so I'm very impressed in terms of how you played that back.
You're going to tease me about that one, I think.
Good for you. No, I think a recurring theme I hope for your listeners is about being the best version of yourself. Maybe I will end with reminding the group of Oscar Wilde's quote: "Be yourself. Everyone else is already taken." So with that, thank you very much for a delightful conversation.
Well, Heath, I can't thank you enough. There's so much wisdom in there, and that's a beautiful way to end. So thank you.